Welcome to the second episode of the Sideline podcast. I'm here with our guest speaker, Tash Lagacé, and she's the athletic therapist for the Peterborough Petes and the Peterborough Lakers. Welcome, Tash.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And I'm looking forward to this conversation today. I know we talked a little bit before about how you've also experienced a concussion in sport, actually multiple concussions in sport, but also you fulfill a unique role in our sport landscape in Peterborough, being the athletic therapist for the Peterborough Petes and the Peterborough Lakers. So it'll be great to hear your perspectives on what it's like from the sideline, and I'm excited to learn from you from that. With that, though, I'd like to maybe dive into the first question, just hear a little bit about your concussion story and your experiences with the injury.
Yeah, so I've had unfortunately quite a few concussions myself. Only a couple that were actually diagnosed, but now knowing into my role as an athletic therapist, many more that probably should have been diagnosed, but these were many, many years ago, long before, concussions were even somewhat understood. The biggest one I ever got, I was in grade 9 playing rugby in high school and made this massive tackle. I was this tiny 4'11" gymnast who was like maybe 105 pounds and took down someone about 3 times my size and just happened to spin, and she sat on my head, so my head bounced off the ground and back up onto her and then hit the ground again. I just remember standing up and my coach going, "That was effing awesome," giving me 2 thumbs up, and I was like, "Oh, okay," and then everything was just lights out. Woke up a couple minutes later on the field, completely unaware what happened. Our trainer at the time was just an assistant coach who happened to have first aid. His hands were in my mouth holding my tongue 'cause, at that point, they were like, "Oh, like, she's unconscious. She doesn't wanna swallow her tongue." I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
And all I remember was I'm like, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I just remember looking down going, "I'm in my uniform, so I should be I'm playing rugby?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, perfect. Alright, you know where you are." Got up off the field, had no idea what happened before, didn't know where I was, just happened to answer correctly because I was like, "Oh, I'm in my uniform. Alright." Sat on the sidelines for maybe 30 minutes and played 2 more games that day because I was
Oh my
fine
God.
afterwards, because it was a tournament day, and ever since then, I know, like, the couple days leading after that, I was having vision problems, massive headaches, couldn't sleep, just completely besides myself, didn't really know what was going on. Didn't get anything checked out because I didn't really say anything to my parents. My parents weren't there watching the game, to be honest, so well, thankfully, or else my mom probably would have freaked out. But just kinda kept it to myself because I was like, "Oh, this like, I'm just going through something, like, who knows what." Fast forward a couple years, had another concussion from tobogganing, actually, not even sport related, and just that one was probably my bad one that gave me, like, clouds over my eyes, migraines. I definitely had that one checked out for my vision. Luckily, nothing was severely wrong, but since those 2, like, major ones, and I know like, concussions aren't classified as major or anything anymore, but at the time, those were, like, my biggest hits that came with symptoms, and since then, those ones I've been, yeah, pretty, certain that that's kind of what started my whole concussion history stuff.
Yeah, well, I think that experience in grade 9 is that's honestly that's crazy. Like to think of
Yeah.
where we're at now and then that experience and how it's like, oh yeah, she's fine. She knows where she is. And
Yeah.
just kind of going back into sport after that. And it's amazing that you're even where you are today, doing all the work that you're doing and having that experience and then going back and playing those extra games. And it's funny you mentioned tobogganing because this is obviously a sports focused podcast, but those are the type of activities too, where in real life, there's so many opportunities for getting a concussion. And you
Mhm.
maybe that's not a sport, but that's definitely a leisure or recreational activity, right? Where
Oh, yeah.
you're not really thinking that, oh yeah, I could get a concussion doing this. It's more having fun, but clearly those types of things can really impact someone and what they're going through for sure.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think, like, what's interesting too, and you didn't necessarily allude to this, but I kinda sensed it in the way that you're talking about, especially the rugby story. Um, like you knew that your assistant coach didn't necessarily have the training, the background, also a representative of the times maybe, but now in your position as an athletic therapist, do you think that there's any type of connection to maybe the experiences you had having injuries in sport, and then also maybe that care or that help that you received at that time, and you're where you're at now, and seeing how those connect?
Absolutely. I mean, my story of why I became an athletic therapist actually stems more from my gymnastics side. I had quite a few ankle injuries growing up from gymnastics. So just over the times of getting physio, learning how to tape myself, treating myself, that kind of thing, that kind of made me realize that like, hey, like I know a decent amount of about injuries basically because I injured myself so often. But I was like, I kind of am enjoying this. And that's actually what pushed me into becoming more of an AT. And initially I wanted to be a physio and then got to York and York was like, welcome to athletic therapy. And I was like, oh, I actually like this better. I'm like, I like the sideline aspect. I don't want to be in a clinic. Like if I have the opportunity to uh, be working with athletes all the time or being on the sidelines, I'm like, I'm all about that. And then obviously the concussion side definitely helped. But yeah, it was more the gymnastics and injuries, like the MSK stuff that kind of pushed me in. And then once I got into athletic therapy and started learning more and more about concussions and realizing, oh, like what happened to me was not right. And, the risks that come along with me returning to play as soon as I did. We all know Rowan's Law and everything now. So, like, that kinda got me going, I got very lucky that something serious didn't happen." And then that kinda stemmed me and pushed me forwards even more to, like, more into concussion research and just expanding my knowledge on concussions.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I guess the one thing I'm wondering in just hearing that, and like what is it about the sideline that is so interesting to you in being a part of sport like that?
I like emergency scenarios. Being a paramedic was kind of always on my sideline or my back burner sort of thing, just because I do like the emergency aspect of being prepared for almost anything. But again, I do like the sports more. So for me, working a sideline game, especially like high contact sports like rugby, hockey, lacrosse, I could be ready for someone to drop from a concussion, MCL sprain, tear, rupture, even cardiac arrest. Like, right, I'm on the sidelines just literally ready for anything, and I actually like, I love the adrenaline rush, I love that aspect of the job.
Wow. Yeah, it's important work, and I think, I'm sure all of your athletes appreciate it when they know that they're in safe hands, when maybe they're laying on the ice or they're coming off onto the bench and like, "Oh, man, I don't know what happened, but it's not good. I need your help." So, I'm sure they really appreciate having you there.
I hope
Um,
so.
yeah, no, I'm sure they do. It's probably also an annoyance because they're like, "Dang," and similar to what you said, "I'm injured again," and dealing
Yeah.
with all those injuries, and I know I've had my fair share of injuries as well, and part of the reason why I do this work for sure. Um, I guess moving over to a different segment now, so it's the small wins log is this next segment. So, you've obviously dealt with several different concussions in sport. So I'm curious if you had any maybe small wins along the way that helped you along your journey where it really showed you that, okay, maybe I am making some progress here.
You mean for, like, for me personally or
Yeah, for you personally, let's start there, and then afterwards we can talk more generally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, over my years of dealing with headaches and migraine, I was kinda just like, "Well, this is it. This is what I'm gonna be like for the rest of my life." Again, getting into York, learning more about concussions in the program, and York had a decent, concussion research, program going on there, so I helped out with a few studies, nothing crazy, but, started learning more about being able to still get treatments and whatnot, so would get a couple treatments done on my neck, some vestibular work, and for those, like, some days, honestly, I would feel like complete crap afterwards,
Yeah.
but I got reassured that that's just, I'm straining and, like, testing my systems and, like, progressing essentially. So days where, I'd go weeks without migraines, for me, that was a huge win.
Yeah.
Even though for some people they'd be like, "Oh, it's just nothing," but for me, like, my migraines were pretty debilitating. So yeah, having my first couple weeks without a migraine was probably my biggest, like, "Oh my god, like, this is actually progress."
Yeah, you're back to maybe that that baseline that you kind of hope to get to at all times, right, in your
Mhm.
recovery. But yeah, that's I think the relief after, like, working through a headache or even a migraine as well, like, that is definitely a great win, especially if you're able to sustain that for a period of time, for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess you kinda hinted at it, but what about in your practice as an athletic therapist with the Petes, with the Lakers? How, like, are there small wins that you notice maybe consistently across athletes' recovery pathways with concussion, and what do you think they are?
Absolutely, there's small wins. A lot of times my athletes, they don't see them, so I have to kinda point them out being like, "Well, look." A big one is even just day-to-day symptom reduction. I'll get them to fill out the SCAT symptom score evaluation pretty much every day, and, they'll come in being like, "I still feel like shit, like, it's just nothing's changing," but I'll look at them and be like, "Well, your score today was only 10 out of 122. Yesterday you're at 15, right?" So just to get them being like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess," like, not saying like this actually means you're progressing, but just small things where they're like, "Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, my headache's not as bad today. You're right. Okay." Plus just being around the arena and being around the boys, I feel like for them that's a small win because sometimes at the very beginning, depending on how symptomatic they are, they don't want anything to do with the rink. It's too loud. It's too right? And they also feel like they let down their team. So and I get that, right? Like, they don't wanna be there or they're depressed because they're watching all their teammates play, practice, and they can't be involved. But then you see them start to come back around, start to hang out with the boys, joke around. Those are, again, like, small wins that they just sometimes don't notice. That's it's just nice to be like, "Hey, look, like, you're joking around today. Like, you're part of like, you went and watched video today. Yes, you didn't go on the ice, but you're watching video." Like, just yeah, small stuff like that that's just and each athlete's obviously gonna be different, each sport's gonna be different too, but yeah.
Yeah, that's something we actually talk about a lot when we're educating is that step to actually being with your team again, even if you're not able to participate, as you mentioned. I think that is such a great small win to mention there because there is that process where you're not able to be at the rink, as you just said, but then once you get there and you're able to hang out, that's a huge shift for you because you're not isolated anymore.
Mhm,
You're not
exactly.
feeling like it's just you. You can be a part of that social culture that you're so used to, and it kind of brings you back whether you realize it or not. And I think that's so important, and it's something that I think every athlete, can maybe relate to who's had a concussion as well, and, recognizing that as a win in and of itself is huge. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think that's great. And, I think next on the segments list that we have here is the unsung hero. So, we'll start off with your personal experience, and I know we keep going back to this, and it was maybe a little bit ago, but, was there anybody that you wanted to just kinda shout out and maybe share a little bit of, gratitude towards for helping you work through some of your own personal experiences with concussion?
Honestly, not really, because
Okay.
I know, so I was thinking about this, the other day and, like, I mean, it was a long time ago, so it's hard to remember, but I do remember, like, obviously, my best friends at the time were supportive of me, but, like, other than that, like, I didn't go see a doctor. My parents didn't really right? Like, I didn't really tell them anything, so that was
Yeah.
kind of my own fault, right? So I kept a lot of it to myself. So I didn't really have that person helping me out along the way, pushing me, being like, "Hey, like, this is a small win for you," or, "Hey, like, like, we'll get there. We'll help you through it." It was kind of a which is stupid on my behalf, which is I use that story all the time for my athletes when they try and hide stuff from me or, I'm like, "Hey, I've been there, I've done it. It sucks. Like, trust me. Firsthand experience, high level athlete, like, it's not cool." Um, so yeah, like, I can't really say like, once I got to York, the program there, the AT program, that would probably be my unsung hero, again, because they helped develop me into the AT I was becoming, but actually going through in, like, grade 9, 10 in high school, not really, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. I think that the one thing that I may even point out, and maybe it's not, something that you would necessarily point out on your own, but maybe the unsung hero is you. right? Like
Maybe.
navigating all that by yourself at a young age, I think is quite a task. And you probably were dealing with a lot more than you give yourself credit for, and you came out on the other side of it. So I think, yeah, I think that's at least something in this conversation, what I'm thinking right now. And I think you should give yourself credit for that for sure.
There we go. Pats on the back
Yeah,
there.
a little pat on the back.
My
Perfect.
stubbornness, helped me out for once.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Obviously, we wouldn't recommend anybody doing that alone, especially
No,
nowadays, and
absolutely
that's why
not.
we have so many great supports in place with PACA, with different people in the community who can help. But it is something, especially back when you sustain those injuries, I think it's amazing that you're able to work through it the way that you did.
Mhm.
And then I think, yeah, just again, bringing this back to maybe your profession, and also working with high performance athletes. Is there maybe someone, a part of that recovery process that you do see maybe is an unsung hero, in like for your athletes as they go through it?
Yeah, so this is actually when I would say the AT, or our strength coach. I know in like our experience for sure, our strength coaches, the guys at Hybrid, they are phenomenal. They deal with the athletes just as personally as I do. Pretty much every single day, seeing them in their almost most vulnerable state. Right, they're at the gym, they're like literally unleashing. It's not hockey related. They're just there to get work out and whatnot. So their support, because they obviously we work very closely with our strength and conditioning coaches, so they know what the guys are capable of doing that day based on their return to play protocol. Um, so they're the biggest supporters, I believe, and like I'd say the biggest unsung hero for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, as my brother, who is a strength and conditioning coach with Hybrid Team, I'm sure he'll appreciate that too.
Little
Um,
shout out to Eric there
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
and Josh and Brody.
Yeah, and of course the other guys as well. No, that's great. And I think it's what's interesting about that too is that there must be some sort of communication that's going on between you and them every day, right? To inform
Mhm.
them of like obviously they'll have a feel, but you have to be like, okay, this is what we're thinking in terms of the capacity for the athlete today. Can you adapt the program for them? So there is
Abs
there is an element of personalization needed for that too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get a call or text that morning being like, "Hey, you know, how's this guy doing? How'd he skate?" Or again, I'd text be like, "Oh, he like this is what we did. These are his objective measures in terms of like where his heart rate's allowed to be at. Let's not do any like jumps or any of that kind of stuff." I mean, the boys there are like the strength coaches at Hybrid are they're phenomenal. We've pretty much had a return to play protocol in place for a couple years out of that they don't really need to necessarily say what can and can't we do. It's more about where they're at so they know kind of what to do with them. But yeah. Or, a guy comes in that morning and hasn't told me about an injury, then yeah, we'll usually get a, "Hey, what's going on with so and so?" I'm like, "I don't know. No one told me about this one yet." So that one, they'll kind of be like, "Oh, they're complaining of A, B, C," and go from there. But generally speaking, it hasn't happened for any concussions. Just symptom stuff, knock on wood. I usually pick those ones up pretty quickly. But other stuff is that's a different story.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess um, that is all great information, and obviously, all that stuff also happens like kind of away from the sideline. That's just the work that goes on behind the scenes, right? The stuff that when people come to the arena, they don't really see all the work that goes on behind. I guess my question I have for you now is actually the next segment. So the lessons from the sideline. It's like what kind of lessons are you seeing for athletes when maybe this is that athlete AT relationship where you're seeing maybe like what lessons have you learned through those interactions specifically for concussion that can help maybe other athletes and their athletic therapists across the sports sector more generally?
Ooh, that's a good one. The biggest one that I mean, and I've seen firsthand and just we know in research, not every concussion is the same. It's not like an ACL rehab or ACL sprain where we're like, yep, we know you're going to be out this amount to this amount. We know this is how we start your rehab. This is how we like progress, whatever. A concussion, we know the minimum amount they'll be out, but we don't know the maximum, which is probably the
Yeah.
hardest part to deal with coaches as well. in terms of, he's like, well, he only got the tiniest knock on the head. And why has he been out for a month versus this guy got knocked out on cold and he's back in the 10 days? That's probably the biggest, I guess, lesson. Yeah. Like not every concussion is the same and not every hit's a concussion. That's the other one
Yeah.
too, where players are so paranoid now. There's been a few times where I had to talk some guys out thinking, they're like, I don't know, I hit my head. I have a concussion, don't I? And I was like, no, like, which is honestly, we've kind of gone the other way a little bit with some of the players, which I'm like, okay, I never expected this one to happen. Like, you know, they get hit and they instantly are like, I'm out, I'm screwed. Typically it's the knock and then they're hiding symptoms or hiding stuff from me. But being able to just educate them like, nope, not every hit's a concussion. We take it, you know, personal each time and just go with kind of where you're at, what your symptoms are, that kind of thing. Um, I don't know if any like I'd say that's probably the biggest lesson, yeah, is they're not all the same and not every concussion rehab's the same either. Like it's all going to be individualized based on what symptoms people are experiencing.
Yeah, no, I think one thing that you kind of said there that kind of struck me was the like players thinking they have a concussion when they may not.
Definitely.
I think that's well, in my research, I looked into like the role fear plays in the concussion recovery process, and I think that's also one of the things I was able to uncover was there is a fear of re-injury. Maybe those athletes have had a concussion before. Maybe they know what it's like, and they worry that they may get another one, right? And so
Mhm.
that's from your perspective. Are you seeing maybe not you're seeing that? Well, you are seeing it more and more, is what you said, but like, are you also having to manage some of the fear that goes in with some of the injuries that the athletes are experiencing as well, where maybe they think it's worse than it is, or maybe you're kind of working with them on expectations, not only in the moment when it happens, but also during their recovery?
Absolutely. I was gonna say, yeah, actually the fact that you mentioned that it was the couple athletes who have sustained concussions in the past. It was those the ones that were a little bit more cautious, a little bit more fearful because they have had problematic stuff, right? Like they do know what it's like, whether or not it was a bad recovery or like longer recovery than expected kind of thing. But typically it's the ones that have been, or even another injury, right? Like someone came back
Yep.
from a blown ACL and all of a sudden now they knock their head and they're like, oh no, like instantly go to, I just had a big hit, like I just got back, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of not talking them down, but like, yeah, like going over fear and um what was the other word? Sorry, what was the other word you used?
Just the
There's my brain for it.
expectations or like,
Expectations, thank you.
yeah, even when they're going through the recovery and they're making those progressions, like, how are you working with them if there's setbacks in their recovery?
That's a tough one because obviously setbacks are gonna happen. But I kinda just we sit them down, we have a one-on-one, we bring in the strength coach if we need, bring in even the coaching staff, and we say, "Hey, like, there is no pressure on you returning quickly. Like, if there's a setback that happens, that's okay, we'll manage it day by day." And then, yeah, the coaches are usually really good to be like, "Yeah, like, I'm not forcing you, like, I'd rather you be back 100% versus having the step back and trying to rush to get back at 80% kinda thing." That usually is a big one to help the athletes kind of manage their mental side of it. But I mean, yeah, obviously setbacks are not fun and they happen. So it's a another individualized thing. Like depending on the setback, we just kind of sit down, chat between myself and the athlete, bring in whoever I need to as secondary, and just go from there.
Yeah, I guess just continuing to ask questions about this because I find it very fascinating. But how, like, say there's added pressure on your athletes, like they're already high performance athletes. Maybe it's somebody's draft year, maybe they're up for a new contract or whatever. They're dealing with these other pressures on top of not only just playing good, but just maybe staying in the lineup each night. Like, do you find that that impacts the recovery process at all for some athletes?
Absolutely. That adds a lot of extra stress on the athletes, especially young ones. On the lacrosse side, not like these guys are already a lot of them play in the NLL, so they're professionals, so they're used to and like they're older, right? They're young adults. Some of them have families, careers, so it's a little bit different perspective there. But definitely with any of the younger athletes, it's they're learning, right? Sometimes, like you said, if it's their draft year, they've never really been in this amount of pressure, amount of anxiety before. So that's definitely one that I definitely see. as an external sort of stressor involved for sure.
Yeah, so then your role in that is obviously helping them through the recovery, but it seems like you also have to kind of work with them on the mental side of it too, which is really interesting. And just like
Yeah,
helping them
so
the mentality, I guess, of the recovery.
exactly. We have an excellent, mental health resource with the team. So obviously if it's something gets, like, really big, then we reach out to them or even the athletes, like, they have all their numbers saved. But typically, it's more of a, the guys trust me, they come and just have chats with me, so it's more of just an unload session where they just kinda let everything off their chest, or we just kinda chat and just sort of help them talk down that anxiety. But yeah, our mental health coach and our mental health supportment team they're unreal for that.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's it for me, and I appreciate all of your perspectives and all of your lessons. And I think this has been an amazing podcast. I really appreciate all of the insight that you provided, sharing your story as well, not only as an AT but also your personal experience. And I think people are going to get a lot of value from this, and will value what you had to say. And I really love all the lessons from the sidelines. Also, learning more about what it's like to be an AT in that role. I think it's so important, and obviously it would be great if there were ATs at every single sporting event. I think that would be the ideal scenario. Unfortunately, it's not always the case, but I think when they are there, I think there's always that extra layer of trust that's just built within that team, just knowing that they are in safe hands. So I really appreciate the role that you fill in the sports system. And I think it's, as a former athlete, I wish I had access to an AT like you, to be
Same.
able to help me through my recovery for sure.
No, I appreciate it, and, like, honestly, this podcast is a great thing. Like, concussion stuff is, as we know, close to me, and it's nice to see that there's more and more research and stuff getting posted and published now about concussion, and I'd love to see where it goes.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Appreciate the chat.
Thanks.